Oh boy, we're back. We are back. We hope everyone can see me and hear me. This is Open Circuit episode 17. The date is April 28th, 2020. Today we have a really special guest I'm very excited to speak to. Someone I've worked with quite recently, actually, and we're going to talk about that. It is Mr. Robert Dayton is joining us live from where he's at in Canada, but very far away from where we are at our secret location at 404 York Road, Guelph, Ontario, Canada, at Ed Video. So very excited to speak to Robert soon. Normally, as our recurring viewers might notice, my co-host and co-producer, who's normally right about here, Edie, is not here today, but that's okay. She's got to catch up on her online schoolwork and her other projects. This isn't the only thing she does, is work on Open Circuit with me. And hopefully she will be back tomorrow or the next day with her famous video game reviews that she does each day. So before we get going, I wanted to mention something about another live streaming cool thing that's happening right out of Guelph here. It's called Love Affair Radio. My good buddy Brian Shirk has set this up, and usually they repost our Open Circuit episodes each day, amongst the many other cool things, live DJ sets and chit chat and talk and all sorts of things. So very cool to keep some stories flowing out on the internet, as that is sort of our only option right now. Let's talk about, though, some of our upcoming guests. I'm excited about some of these people. Here we go. Let's just go through the slides here. On Thursday, we have Guelph artist Carolyn Riddell talking about all sorts of things, her art, some of her travels, her experiences, and we just arranged a very cool thing that I think she's going to remotely read my Turkish coffee cup fortune. I'm very excited to hear what's in store for me that way. Then on Thursday, we have Guelph Live AV Act Versa. Always had lots of connections with Ed Video and Kazoo Fest, and we're a winner of the Look Here Micro Grant commissioning, and they just kept going with it. And I've played dozens and dozens of shows across Canada, and can't wait to talk about what they do and how they do it. Then we have Julie Ferranda coming in next week on May 4th from Glasgow, Scotland, where she's currently living. She's going to tell us all about her career in contemporary art. And then Dustin Seabrook on the 5th, talking about his Project Isolation video series, collecting video footage from people in isolation just to talk about what they're doing, what they're thinking about. Then another Guelph artist, Corey Steckel, coming at us on May 6th. Corey's going to talk about what he does in art and, in particular, his collage work. So, very excited about all of these upcoming
right
guests.
Now, not more than humans.
Whoa, that wasn't supposed to happen yet, but it's coming soon. So what we're going to do now is we're going to see if we can find Robert Dayton on the video phone. That's how we chat. And but first, I'll tell you a little bit about Robert. He does a lot of things, as some great artists do. He's an artist, he's a musician, he's an actor, performer, he's a comedian, he's a writer, he's an underground sensation in Canada and beyond. But depending what day it is, that might not be the order of how he thinks of himself or others are thinking of him. But he's a really awesome and fascinating person. I can't wait to talk about his career in music and in art and in other things too. So let's see if we can find him on Skype. Let's see. Hopefully the internet gods shine on us, and we'll see if we can bring him in. I think he's there. Oh my goodness, that is Robert Dayton live. Robert, how are you doing?
Fantastic. How are you today?
Well, I'm doing what I can with what I've got. It's trying to have some fun and get some stories out in the only way we can. So where are you, man? What are you up to?
Oh, look, I just turned on. We've got a delay on the YouTube.
Hey, that's how YouTube works. There's a bit of a delay in there. Yeah, so you can watch along, but you're going to see yourself 20, 15, 20 seconds in the past.
So there's nothing I can do to change it.
No, I don't have that much control over things yet. Yeah. So where are you? What's up?
I'm in British Columbia, Canada, Surrey, British Columbia, Canada. And I'm in a delightful, if you can see this, beige room, beige curtains. I don't know if I can show the floor. The floor is fascinating.
Let's see.
Let's see here. Can you get a load of this? Did you see that?
Oh, is it bright red?
It's crimson.
Wow. Could we see your sweater too? I saw a glimpse of that, but I think people would love seeing that.
Back this up here.
Oh, wow.
That's what YouTube is for. It's for show and tell.
That's amazing.
There we go. But wait. Okay, this is the front. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine with that, right? There's 9 monochrome cats. And we turn around.
Yeah.
Actually,
that's the cat's ass. Yeah.
Cat's ass. Yeah. There's no actual puckering going on. But Scott, can we do viewer's choice right now?
Sure. If we have any viewers, it looks like we might have about 7. What would they choose from?
Well, I can either wear this sweater or hold tight for a second.
Okay, let's change it up. Robert is. I should have listed that in his bio. That he also has amazing sweaters. Many of them are cat themed. I was lucky enough to see some in person. Oh, look at that's the one.
We go for full color, but it felt like a monochrome day today. It's more subtle, you know?
Well, matches the drapes, I guess, but
the monochrome does?
Yeah, but that's really a special one too. That was we're sort of a
This matches the carpet.
That's amazing. You're the darling of Mexico City with that sweater about 2 months ago, I remember.
2 months ago now, huh?
Yeah.
Last hurrah.
Well, I heard your interview about 3 or 4 weeks ago with Jenny Mitchell, who's my friend here from Guelph, and it was interesting to hear about the first part of it was you're still in LA, and then you kind of escaped, and I was glad to hear that you're safe and everything. And later I'd like to talk a little bit about your experiences in LA, what you're doing there, and whatnot. But I would like to start this interview with some of your music projects that span back to the 90s. So let's look at a video right away. One that you posted recently on Facebook. I thought it was great, and so I stole it from the internet, and I'd like to take a look at this. This is a Much Music feature of you being interviewed with ham in Canned Ham by the infamous Nardwuar. Let's take a look here.
Right now, Nardwuar, the Human Serviette, interviews Canned Ham, the band, not the meat product.
Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, outside of Vancouver's #1 karaoke palace, the Dufferin Hotel. Who are you?
I'm Big Ham.
I'm Little Ham. And we are Canned Ham.
We will entertain you and do a show for you. A show for you will entertain you and do a show for you. A show for you will entertain you and do a show for you.
So what is the importance, Canned Ham, of the Dufferin Hotel? Why are you trying to break in here?
We want to sing.
And people may have heard you entertain before it all there, Big Ham, because you've been in copyright.
I was in copyright. I was out and entertaining the kids this summer with Matthew Good and Big Wreck. It was great fun.
Now, Canned Ham, Big Ham, Little Ham, you guys are not a low-budget Tenacious D, are you?
No. Well, they're two guys that are both big, and we're two guys.
I'm big and he's little. That's the difference.
You're Big Ham.
I am Big Ham. And
You're Little Ham.
And they play guitars.
we sing to tape music, and we have a big budget. It just looks small.
And you say the word kids because your show is PG-13. It's for the couples and the kids. There's no nudity, is there, Little Ham?
Swimsuit area always covered.
It's for everyone. It's for kids of all ages.
Father, son, father, son, father, son, father, son, father, son, father, son, father, son. Anything's done.
Fans really do love you guys because it's so easy to have you guys back them up, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because if you give us the call, we get on the plane and we are there in hours.
Thanks so much, Canned Ham. Keep on rocking the free world and doot-doodle-loot-doo.
Doo-doo.
Believe this, Canned Ham played my friend's house party in Vancouver.
All right, Little Ham. That was really cool to see. A real throwback to the glory days of Much Music. And I'm also a little nervous interviewing you today because I'm not Nardward. And I know I could never live up to that. But can you tell us a little bit about Canned Ham? I was thinking if you're an A&R record person, how would you pitch Canned Ham to get the record deal?
Oh God! Well, we never did get them, and don't you worry. There's only one Nardwar. God bless him. He's been very supportive. Just be you. Just be you.
I'll try.
But it is interesting to watch, the glory days of Much Music. I mean, we just don't, there's just, those days are gone. But it was an interesting, I got turned on to a lot of stuff watching that as a teenager, Much Music, back when it was a little more innovative and played a little more interesting stuff. And then it changed. Those days are over. So yeah, an A&R guy. Well, we had to put them out ourselves. I mean, it was, I don't know. So doing that, so asking me to do that pitch would be perhaps insurmountable. We described ourselves as, we did our one-sheet time and our hype sheets, and we described ourselves as, a song and dance duo, that our emotional scars are shaped like happy faces. We just really wanted to just, we just dared ourselves to make ourselves and everyone else laugh, but we wanted it to go deeper than that. We wanted the songs to be good. The funny music that we liked, it seemed, was, in the minority of what would be the musical. It's a tough genre. You don't get a lot of respect in the musical comedy genre, but we were, yeah, we did it at Christmas too. So yeah.
Can you tell our young viewers what it was like in the '90s when you didn't you didn't have an A&R person, but you also didn't even have really the internet yet? Like, how would a band get themselves out there and promote themselves, make a name, and then get featured on Much Music? What were you doing?
Well, I guess when when Canned Ham started, the 90s were over pretty much. Actually, here's a funny thing about that. We wanted to call, I was thinking about this recently. I really wanted to call our first album, which is called Charisma, but I was really gunning to call the first album Millennial Fever, or Millennium Fever, not Millennial, Millennium. Although I might, am I a millennial? I might be. I can't, those timelines, they keep shifting. It's like tectonic plates of what your generational name and what your traits are. But maybe I'm out of that. I don't know. But anyways, it was going to be called Millennium Fever, and I wanted to call it that, Millennium Fever, because 2000 had already happened. So that's the thing. We were already in 2000, I think, when we were coming up with the first album. And so I wanted to call it Millennium Fever and then put Y2K compatible in the corner because Y2K had already happened. And Ham was like, no. And then years later, Ham was like, that joke gets better with age. That would have been, if you see that 20 years later, it's funnier than it was, because at the time, making a joke like that, it just wouldn't have worked as much as like, oh, that dates. And then it just, time unfolds and you go, wow, Y2K. I mean, we have our, I'm seeing so much, panic right now that, that some of it is real and some of it isn't. Y2K, none of it was real. So.
Well, I'm not sure if either of us are entitled to call ourselves millennials, but I think we missed it by a few years. But that would
I don't know.
It would age well, I think, that joke. You had a few other musical acts too. One that we'll just talk about really quickly is New Horizons. And when I was researching you last night, I had this weird memory. I believe that I met you the first time when New Horizons played it at Video. Is that true, or am I manufacturing this idea?
You're manufacturing it. I don't think we ever played at Video. So. New Horizons was so after I left Vancouver, so Canned Ham was a little more, Ham is still based in Vancouver. Ham is doing a thing called Theremin Man now. He does Sunday night meditations. And so he's been doing theremin music. And we talk pretty often. And, we're talking about stuff. He's been so busy lately, but we are talking about doing more stuff. Ham and I. But, the big thing is that leaving, Vancouver and Toronto are just so far apart from each other. And I mean, you wanted to know about Much Music. I mean, and what it was like back then before, I was even a late joiner to Facebook, but I was on MySpace and some stuff did happen that way with us through MySpace. And I still prefer MySpace. It just stopped loading at some point. And then I had to join the more evil social media of Facebook. But we had, I think, a tape of our video Father and Son was at Much Music through Nardwuar, because Nardwuar, I'd known him. I first heard about Nard when I was like a teenager, around the time that I heard about this band No Fun, which we'll get to later, because they were my first club show. So when I was a teenager, I saw Nardwuar's card and blah, blah, blah. And not long later, Nardwuar's been so supportive. I've been on a show a lot because he's just so supportive. And I think the video of Father and Son landed at Much Music. It might have been through him. It might have been through someone else. Maybe, who knows? And they went, we can't do anything with this. Send it to Music Plus. So the video would just we did nothing. We tried our best to do everything, but sometimes it's like hitting the wall. But that's a whole other story. So, it just circuitously wound up at Music Plus, the French-Canadian arm of Much Music, and then at a weird show called Dollar a Clip. And we're going, why is our video getting so much airplay in, our website? We're going, our website is getting all these people from Quebec visiting us. Why are all these people from Quebec visiting us? We don't know why. And then it led to us going on their TV show in Montreal and doing a live appearance. And it was this crazy show that just had all these it was called Dollar Eclipse, so all these ridiculous videos. So they play us, and maybe they play an old video by Divine, You Think You're a Man, or stuff like that. It was just this goofy show that, we put it out into the world and it wound up there. And then I left Vancouver, moved to Toronto, started a band right away called Wet Dirt, which had Toby, who I've known for years from bands like Mao and The Gay, and then Robin Fry on guitar. And it didn't last long. We recorded one album that came out on In Your Disc, and I'm proud of that album, but it ended. It was short-lived, and so, then New Horizons happened after that. I was kind of broken by that point. 2 iterations of Wet Dirt, actually. There was 2 iterations. Robin moved to Berlin. We started a new lineup, and that just fell apart due to just lack of professionalism. So I was once bitten, twice shy. So I went into New Horizons going, okay, this is like, are you serious about this? And then it imploded too. My Toronto bands didn't work so well. The Canadian Romantic worked a little better. But,
before we get into talking about Canadian Romantic, there's one other band that is really fascinating to me. It's called July 4th Toilet. How does that kind of fit in to the whole story before we watch a hilarious clip of a live performance by July 4th Toilet? When did that happen?
Yeah, it's weird. I bring up these very short-lived projects, and maybe I shouldn't see them as failures because they were so short-lived, or, bands are like relationships, so they implode and everything. But I'm also just so used to being in, like, Canned Ham, we formed in 2000, that's 20 years. July 4th Toilet, we formed in 1994. And me and Julian Lawrence, a cartoonist and visual artist, he's in England now. He teaches basically comic books. He teaches it in England now. And so we formed it together. We were living together. And these guys, they had a duo. They came to town called the Zip Code Rapists. I know, tough name. But John Singer and Greg Turkington were the duo. And John said, well, we have a band name for you, and it's on Greg's list. And so Greg Turkington had all these band names on a list, a ton of names: Totem Pole of Losers, U.S. Saucer, Faxed Head, The Easygoings. And so and the next one on the list was July 4th Toilet. And we were the only Canadians on that list. And people thought we were like anti-American. We were actually named by Americans. But we had a mandate, which was no 2 shows the same. So every show has to be completely different. And so, our lineup kind of ebbed and flowed. My brother Franco, I'm staying with, plays guitar on the second album all over it. And he's played with us a number of times. Various members came through. Some people could play very well. Some people, it wasn't about their musicianship. It was about their vision. And the styles of music would change. Sometimes it was country, sometimes it was pure noise, a lot of times it was very glammy pop. So, yeah, and so every show would just have a different concept and theme.
Well, let's take a look right now at one of those shows. It's from the year Y2K, as you're talking about, 2000, and it's called Deep Sea Diver. We'll just take a look at an excerpt, and we'll just keep chatting.
Sure.
Robert, that must have been tough to come up with a new, completely new show for every gig. How did you deal with that?
It's funny. I mean, some of the stuff, like that song would reappear in different shows. We recorded it. It's on our first album. All that stuff's on Bandcamp, by the way. And so we basically would use that sometimes, for various shows if it worked. Or that show in particular was all about a love of something that you love, unicorns.
Yeah.
And so half the show was about unicorns, and then the other half was kind of these other numbers as well. But sometimes we would have to learn a whole new set in a week and a half. What's really funny is one of our first shows, and it was opening for Zip Code Rapists, It was at the Malcolm Lowry Room. And one of our first shows was doing a 25th anniversary set, 25 years of July 4th Toilet. And that was back in 1995. We'd been around for about a year. And so we did this 25th anniversary show. So you flash forward 20 years later, and we're doing a 20th anniversary show. But it was real. It was our actual. So the 25th anniversary show, we were making it up. The 20th anniversary show was actually our 20th anniversary show, and it was all about being together for 20 years. So we could have, I realized that last time I saw Julian, I didn't even know he was in Vancouver. He didn't know I was in Vancouver, and there was a bunch of us were congregated, including Ham, who has played on and off with the band too. We were congregated at this thing called Talent Time, and I went, oh my goodness, we could have actually done a 25th anniversary show. We were all together in the same city. We could have done we could have reenacted our fake 25th anniversary on our real 25th anniversary. But sometimes we do, like if we were covering sometimes we do a full tribute album, like Their Satanic Majesty's Request by the Rolling Stones, and we'd have 2 weeks to learn it. So we would learn an entire album and play it live in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was just what we did.
That's a big challenge. It's maybe not really sustainable. I mean, I'm finding it difficult to come up with a new, unique show every day in this way, but this is a stage act. That's something altogether. Let's talk about, I think, what your most recent musical project, one I'm kind of know you the most for in recent years, is the Canadian Romantic. How did you get so romantic? Where did the idea for Canadian Romantic come from?
Well, it was kind of threefold. I was doing some DJ sets in Toronto. When I had just moved to Toronto, I had moved there and I hooked up with my good buddy, Kevin Howes, who's an incredible music historian and DJ and record collector. And so I'd hooked up with Kevin, and Kevin had just put out the Jamaica to Toronto series. Like he put all that together, which was an incredible Canadian historical series about, all these amazing musicians like Jackie Matu, et cetera, and the Mighty Pope moving from Jamaica to Toronto. So he had done that, coordinated that, this album by Doug Randall. He had reissued that, this wonderful kind of midlife crisis, environmental soft pop album that the CBC put out in the early 70s. So Kevin had done all this stuff, and we decided to DJ together. And Kevin had this easy listening record on the Canadian Talent Library. And I went, Kevin, I'm going to do a midnight candlelight recitation. And it was sort of inspired by these plummy voices, often actress, singer, like Peter Wingard, people like that. And so the candles would be lit. And then the character started emanating naturally because I was also, I was newly single too. At the time, I was dating someone then, and it went, anyways. And so I had to kind of look inside myself and look at myself. Didn't always like what I saw, and clearly didn't like what I saw. And I also noticed that a lot of people were not feeling attractive. And I'm going, man, a lot of people aren't feeling attractive. And whether they were in relationships or not, it was just that they were not feeling attractive. And so I started this character, the Canadian Romantic, and I was trying to figure out what to do, kind of a late night recitation type character influenced by the genre of romantic poetry albums, which actually sprung out. That's a whole history in itself, the romantic poetry album. So, and it crosses over into actor as singer as well, where these, and sometimes a lot of radio DJs would do these records of reading romantic poetry. So you'd get this record, you'd put it on, and you'd feel more attractive and less alone when you took the record home. There was even a TV show in the 1950s. And this is one, so Rod McEwen was one of the people who spearheaded the romantic poetry album. And he was influenced by something called This Is My Beloved. And there was a few versions of that done, This Is My Beloved, of that book of poetry's turned into records. And one was by a guy named The Continental in the 50s. His real name was Renzo. And in the 1950s, he had this TV show, 15 minutes long, and he would basically seduce the camera. And there's been a few variations on that. In fact, so he would do that, and he made records too. I've got a couple of the records. They're really great. Back in the 1950s. and people would do that. There was an organist named Corla Pandit who would look at the camera while playing organ longingly, and he'd have a turban and he'd gaze longingly into the camera. But there was, oh God, why is my brain, Vito Conzi would even do one too. He did one in the 70s where he was, you know, and I didn't even know about a bunch of these, you know, but I was very influenced by the Peter Wingard album where he's talking to the, he was a early 70s British TV actor with a mustache and a wonderful sense of style. And he would basically, you know, talk to the listener, and you'd have all these sound effects. And Ham and I did a little take on that on the second Can Ham, well, the third Can Ham album after our tribute album. We had a tribute album. But, you know, called Erotic Thriller, where we were talking to the listener, and, you know, in our, you know, Ham would have his loft. And so it came from all those things. So it felt a social need to kind of de-repress Canada and eliminate repression from Canada, as well as making people feel more attractive. And I even came up with a sigil of a winking photo that often would be sold in stores. It was my character, the Canadian Romantic, winking. It was lenticular, like that. And it would be sold in stores. And a lot of people who didn't even know of the character would buy it. They have no idea who I was or anything. They just buy it. And often it was a lot of women going, I asked the store, said, who's buying this? Well, they said a lot of women going through divorces, which I found interesting. So the other influence, the last influence, this is the long spiel of the Canadian Romantic. It was like, where would I get the name? And I thought, well, I could call it the Canadian Lover, but that sounded like a horrible pickup artist, because there actually was a guy kind of like that called something the Lover or something like that. It was awful. He was a pickup artist. And I went, this is not what I want to put out into the world at all. I do not want to perpetuate that kind of thing. I wanted something more ineffable, like romance. But Canadian Lover was a nod to a song that was written about me by Destroyer. Destroyer had written a couple songs about me, and one was called Canadian Lover. It was about me and another guy named Shane Amon, who went by the name Lord Falcon. He's a great artist living in Thunder Bay. So Dan had written this song about us and all that as kind of a nod to us. And so I wanted to kind of return that nod, but romantic is more ineffable than lover, you know? So the Canadian Romantic. So I'm sort of returning the nod, but I wanted Canadian and romantic to brush up against each other, because people kind of go, there's a tension there, because they go, well, wait, is there how does that, huh?
Well, it's a fascinating lineage to that idea. I wasn't aware of those 50s TV shows. It seems to predate the ethos of Instagram by about 70 years, is to, you know, kind of seduce the camera. And it's good, but if you can help people feel more attractive, I think that's a great thing. Let's take a look at the Canadian Romantic video for Oh Canada, and I'm sure our viewers will agree that it is indeed extremely romantic to be Canadian.
For sure. And hey, if anyone has anything they want to ask, go up on the chat. Liz asked me to change my sweater, so I did.
We appreciate it, Robert. Get your questions in.
Oh, Canada.
Well, this might be too much.
I don't think it's too much for YouTube. It's encoded.
Well, it is on YouTube.
We see thee rise. Strong. Free. Oh, Canada.
I can talk a bit about that for a minute. It won't take as long as talking about the Canadian Romantic.
So I can see how some of these themes are continuing into what I want to really get into at the end of this interview about your latest book project. But I would also like to speak before that a little bit about some of your contemporary artwork as well, and how you think about that, how it relates to your other music projects and whatnot. So what came first, the art or the music for you, or what is sort of your early memories of, was there anything that kind of nudged you into pursuing a creative career?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. You want me to answer that now?
Yeah, go for it.
Are we back?
Yeah, we're just chatting. Yeah.
Are we really back? We on now?
Yeah, we're on. I'm just playing your video in the background, but people can hear us.
Okay, okay. Well, I wanted to say with that video too, I mean, with that, you see some of my art in the background there too. Some of my visual art is actually in there. Um, and that was, that was Niles on guitar. He plays with Chandra now, and he was one of the people to kind of produce the session. That's Sean, who did the one of the vocals, but also Chris Cummings there, who has a new album as Marker Starling. He has a new album out right now. It's really, really great, and with who's all on it? Letitia Sager from Stereo Lab, and a bunch of people. But he's so talented. But he laughed when I said we got to do an erotic version of "O Canada," because he said there's these certain chords that are just so not erotic in the national anthem. And so it's a kind of a musical joke, right? It's got this musical joke element to it. How do we do an erotic "Je t'aime, O Canada"? And we made that video. Jeremy Singer from the band Hank filmed it, and it was filmed at the House of Hot Breath, the home of Hot Breath Karaoke in Toronto. Mike Gable and Jen, and so we did it because I went, well, this is my last kind of hurrah. It's Canada 150, which I don't necessarily agree with, and so I wanted to do kind of a subtle criticism of Canada 150. So I put it all out there, called in a ton of favors. We got this video done and went for it, and nobody. I called in favors, and nobody wanted to do me a favor. No one wanted to touch it. I sent it out to all the media, everything, and no one in Canada wanted to have anything to do with it. And I left Canada not long after that. I was like, well, that sums it up. Bye, Canada. And I put it on YouTube.
Well, I think you have a complex relationship with Canada, I think, and I think there's a lot we can talk about with your current project, your book project. But as far as visual art goes, tell us a little bit about I don't know, your style, like how you think about it, like what. We're just going to look at a few examples of this. Unfortunately, you can't see it, but just some drawings and some things from recent times when you're in this area. You decided to go to Waterloo to pursue your MFA. What were you kind of thinking about at that time when you're, maybe a little more focused on visual art?
Yeah, I mean, I was... my portfolio that I submitted, and even the grad show, was basically the visual art, things I've done since I was a kid: perform, write, draw, all those things. As soon as I can hold a pencil, I was drawing. I was performing since I was a kid. All that stuff. I was creating. I just thought, this is what you do. You create. That's what you do. To me, it was never anything like anyone or anything to tell me different. Like, oh, which one do you want to be? I remember doing like these faulty, guidance counselor type high school career tests, and going, well, just doesn't make nothing fit for me. So I don't know, this doesn't make any sense. What's with this test? Oh, well, just change this personality trait. So wait, if I change a few personality traits, I can now be whatever? Okay, well, this is a stupid test. So, that was the first time I'd ever encountered anyone telling me any different. So when I applied for my MFA to go into the grad program, my mother had died a couple months before. She was the one who knit this sweater. And I've moved to Toronto to kind of, for career reasons, to see what could happen. And from Vancouver, and it made me see the bigger scheme of Canada as a whole. And when I talk about that last hurrah or that last straw, well, at that time, I was doing some videos for Hazlitt, Random House, interviewing authors, and that was winding down. And I was writing for jokes for The Onion, as a freelancer in America. And that was winding down because they got rid of all their freelancers. So that was done. They went, oh, bye freelancers. So there was like, phoop. And the page liquor videos for Hazlitt were gone. So it was actually at a time in my life where it's like, well, I guess I will go to grad school. And I had applied just before those things were winding down. It was almost like I knew. And I was going, well, I don't know what will happen if I go to grad school, but I'll be able to make work for a year and a half, and maybe it'll lead to things, because I felt like so there was a bit of a, yes, think more deeply about my work and connect all these elements of my work together. But there was also the whole thing of, well, what's going on in my life now? So what's going on in my career in Canada? Maybe I have to do a grad school. So.
Well, let's talk about some more of that. I mean, I knew who you were, but I think not that we saw each other in person, but I became more aware of your work when you're in Waterloo, I suppose. And thinking about, like, you know, for years, I sort of like, oh, how am I going to work with this guy? You know, you're one of those artists I sometimes call, you're a hard cucumber to pickle, because you do all these different things, and I got to find the right thing for it to work. And so I thought about it for years, and also I knew I didn't want to waste you, because you're so talented. So just about two and a half months ago, we were in Mexico together, in Mexico City at Material Art Fair. We'll take a look at a few slides from that. So tell us about, like, when your work sort of finds an audience, and like at Material Art Fair, a large audience. How do you think about the reaction of people? Like, how do you feel like you're fitting into it from your really unique way of approaching it? Or are there surprising responses to it, or disappointing responses to it? Or how do you feel like how you insert yourself into the contemporary art field, because you're involved in all these other things as well?
Well, it's funny, you say kind of a hard pickle to cucumber, whereas I always kind of took it as like, what do you need? Like, you know, what do you want? Like, even, you know, my time in LA, it's like, well, they don't mind people who do a variety of different things, because it kind of helps. You can do this and you can do that. And you know, it shows, I would like hope to think that it would just, and I'm an idealist, and that's been crushed countless times, but I would like to think that it means that, you know, there's a versatility. You know, so, or an innate understanding of different angles and different approaches. And so being malleable and versatile, and being able to, like, well, you need a drawing, or do you need a writing? Do you need both? You know, where someone goes, well, we'd love to do a book. Who can do the illustration? Well, I'll do the illustration. You know, or say I have to launch a book. Well, oh, we need someone to take it on the road. It's like, well, I can take it on the road. You know what I mean? So to me, that just seems to be natural. So I always get flummoxed when people go, we don't know what to do with you. When I'm going, well, you know, I'm just trying to create, and it's that, and the other problem that I come across, which to me shouldn't be a problem, but for some reason is, to me, I think it should be a solution and not a problem, is that I'm just trying to create meaningful work for an audience, which means somewhere between art and entertainment. So, you know, which means that sometimes the art world gets confused and the entertainment world gets confused. And I'm going, why is that a problem for you guys? You know, why are you guys having problems with this? This shouldn't be a problem. You know, why shouldn't we want to create meaningful work for an audience? And when it does, and you know, I get my work out, when I do get my work out to an audience, it's despite the industry, not because of. And when it gets out to the audience, often they respond. It's a good response. I mean, I can always try to make my work better, and I like to make my work better, and constructive feedback is good. But my God, sometimes that external validation that comes from these unknown sources really keep me going, because when I feel that there's this kind of barrier from the industry, it can feel a bit solitary. So when it reaches people, and sometimes it reaches people who I really respect as well, you know, who's people I already know who they are and respect, then you know, it's like, okay, phew. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I get that. Yeah. From your visual art to writing, Yet another hat you wear, yet another cat sweater you can put on by request. One of the things we were showing at Material Art Fair was the Empty Bed publication. We'll take look at a few images from that, but I really want to just use it as a launching point because I want to talk so much about your current project, your Canadian Glam project. But tell us a little bit about the Empty Bed, how that came to be, what that meant, what that means to you.
Yeah, that came out. When did that come out? Impulse B put that out a year or two ago. And again, it was like trying to find, again, that was like trying to reach the audience and trying to think of the audience first and not the industry, which again, I shot myself in the foot. And even in terms of grants, grant writing, all that sort of stuff, because graphic novel publishers wanted nothing to do with it because it didn't follow a grid on the page. I didn't want those kind of boundaries. I didn't want to restrict. I didn't want to distance the reader from my work. And by having like what is normal in comic books, a central protagonist in a panel grid framework in that kind of tight narrative, to me, would have kept the reader away. And I wanted to really get the reader there and not have them be that character. I wanted them to, I wanted to get rid of those kind of figurative elements so that they could relate to it stronger, because it was an emotional book, but it's with heartbreak. And, it came out probably at a time where people don't want to talk about heartbreak because there was, a lot of scandal and stuff coming out at the time when it was dealing with an emotional framework and how do you get over and work through heartbreak. It's a book that's where it's very, very hard on the person writing it. It was a difficult book to make because it wasn't about pointing fingers except for the one that came back at. So it was like working. It's a very internal book. It's an internal book about heartbreak, and to get it outside of my own experiences, I actually, again, my mother comes up. I had interviewed my mother in it about divorce and death. So, because she'd gone through both. So I wanted that for that greater relatability for the reader. So that was, and I mean, she was amazing. She was an amazing writer herself. I used to do a publication called Drippy where she would review TV movies, and I'd ask her to review the TV movies from a more emotional and personal standpoint. So she was just, yeah, it was great to interview her. So it was, my own mother about that. And it made a lot of people cry. It was an intense part, but it's a pen and ink book. So it's a dark humor book. It's a heartbreak book, but it's pen and ink. The entire thing from start to finish, everything. There's no typesetting in it. It's all pen and ink. It's all done with a nib and a brush and ink. And so, yeah, with usually one image per page to draw the reader in.
Well, that's amazing. Let's talk about your current project. We talked quite a lot in Mexico about it. I was fascinated by the topic, but also particularly your approach to it and your vast knowledge about this topic that no one's really explored, to my knowledge, before. You're literally going to write the book about it, about the history, the lineage of Canadian glam. So I just want to kind of interrogate you with a few questions about your thoughts about it, because I think it's really fertile idea to think about, not just historically, but about how it's caused our current situation to open up. And as people who were involved in it were sort of maybe unsung heroes or pioneers of what is fair game today. So what is glam to you? I mean, I think most people would immediately think of music, but besides music, what else does Canadian glam encompass for you, Robert? Are you there? Oh my goodness, you're frozen, I think you're frozen. Hopefully that's not on my end. Let's see if I can find Robert. He does look glamorous, but he is frozen. Can you see me and hear me, Robert? If not, I'm gonna phone you back. Are you there? Oh, reconnecting. There is a poor network connection. Well, Robert is about 4,000 kilometers away, still in the country of this glamorous country of Canada. So I'm just gonna hang up on you if you can hear me, and let's try to reconnect. All right. So anything can happen, and it does happen on live internet video. Oh, and I'm just getting a little message from Robert that his computer died. So I'm gonna give Robert a few minutes to try to get online again, and maybe you can plug in, and we'll find him on Skype or on Zoom. He's saying, I'm gonna open my Zoom, and let's see if I can figure this out really, really fast. All right, so hope everyone's enjoying the show and enjoying hearing from Robert. And yeah, I just have to very quickly try to set up a Zoom meeting. Let's see here. All right. Okay. And we're just going to go to new meeting, I think. Oh, wow. Yeah, I thought we should, let me see if, I'm going to just do this for a minute while we are trying to find Robert. All right. I'll give it a few minutes, and if not, we'll just cut it off. Maybe we'll have Robert back another day to tell us more about his Canadian glam project, which I'm be disappointed if we can't talk about today. Oh, here, I think he's coming in here. Let's see if this will work, okay? Robert. Let's see. All right, we have a comment here from Brian Shirk, who is speaking about at the beginning of the show. Brian is a local artist, musician, nice guy around town. And he's the creator of this loveaffair.info website that's like rebroadcasting open circuit each day. And he's also, as I understand, a friend of Robert Dayton, who we're trying to find back on Zoom. I'm going to give this another minute or so. And then maybe we'll just have to call it for the day. In the meantime, let's just watch that Canadian romantic video one more time through with sound.
See thee rise, strong, free.
Alright, I think I've got Robert back here. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes, what did I miss? Did I miss anything?
Just me trying to fill time desperately, but it worked. Are we good to go for another 10 minutes or so with this setup?
Yeah, my phone just my phone is working, but my bloody I've been having. Oh, now the computer's work. Oh my God. Okay, I found out that the battery on my computer completely died, even though it was in the charger.
Hey,
So
hey, you know what? I think of it this way. We put a lot of faith in our technology, and you kind of have to just trust it. And, it doesn't always do exactly what we want, hence the entire industry for IT people who solve this stuff each day. So don't worry about it.
how many people did we lose? How many
Oh,
people did
geez,
we lose?
nobody at all. Like, in fact, we have one more than I think before. So it's all good.
Wow. Well, I should go let this go dead again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming back and being resourceful, good at improvising. Let's just get right
Thanks for
into
your
it. About
patience.
no worries. This happens all the time on open circuit. If people don't like it, they don't have to watch. That's my attitude. I don't really care at all.
It's always good to have a backup plan.
That's it, This is my backup plan for in real life. So whatever, I'll need another backup plan. So tell us, let's get into, as I was asking you, when people think about glam, they think about music. But what else is glam to you, Robert?
Hey, look at these nice comments. Hi, Brian. Hi, Alejandro. Hi. Oh my God, lovely people. What constitutes glam? It's funny that you say this, because because it's like, oh yeah.
Aw,
All right. Yeah. Just a sec here. Got a timeout for a sec here.
who's
Okay,
that?
there we go.
Aw,
What's that? That's Tommy.
Tommy.
Because it's trying to figure out what those elements are. I want to show an album, but it's like it's got full nudity on it. I can't show it.
You could maybe just
I'll show it.
put your hand in front of part of it.
Oh no, there we go. That's all you get.
Okay. Just-
A lot of hairy butts called crackers, and I'm literally transcribing my interview with them right now, and they didn't see themselves as glam. This crazy, wild act. In fact, they have a song called "Crazy Man," Crackers in concert, but they had elements that I thought would make them be part of glam. Again, when I talk about the Canadian Romantic, two things that are kind of ineffable. Same thing with Canadian glam, two things that are kind of ineffable. How do you define that? And even, with the work I was doing in Mexico City, like the drawings, I was throwing glam elements in there. I was throwing de-repressed elements in there. I was throwing in Canadian elements in there. And here I am trying to create a new Canada. Well, was there even an old Canada? Does Canada even exist? I mean, why should I bother? At this point, I'm kind of going, why should I bother trying to create a new Canada when Canada might not even exist? So yeah, the glam element, there's a lot of factors that go into that. There's persona and character. Sometimes that's the other, the alien comes into glam from time to time, which we see, with Bowie and Ziggy Stardust, even the cosmic elements of Poland. But that also goes into sexuality too, and gender play. And then there's and it's so much about the visual element, which is also a part of all that as well. Fashion, costumes, the performance. So all those things are aspects of glam. I'm missing some, but those are some. The camp sensibility, that humor, and that knowing wink of camp is there as well. So I'm also writing about, like, when I talk about a band like No Fun, who, here's the thing. A lot of people go, "What's glam? What? There's Canadian glam?" And I'm going, "Yeah, there is. There's lots of it, and I'm always finding more." And there's, and it's got such an interesting, unusual history. And again, when I talk about the authorities or the industry, the last grant rejection, they were going, well, it seems like an article, not a book. And I went, well, I just gave you 20 pages that just scratched the surface here. This is, and all of these stories are interesting. One of which has already seen print. You can go on the By NWR, Nicholas Winding Refn's site, where Kayla Janice, who's incredible, she's an incredible writer and programmer and authority. She was the guest editor of the Nicholas Winding Refn site, and she asked me to print basically a glam duo called La Troupe Grotesque. And
they're glam, but they're comedy. They're not rock, but they're comedy. But they're dealing with all those elements that I just mentioned in a time starting in the late 60s where one member of the duo was openly gay. So it's not only dealing with an unknown part of Canadian comedy history, but it's also dealing with an unknown part of Canadian gay history that no one knows about. And so you could read this history, and I don't want to divulge too many details because it goes across. I mean, we're talking about the Velvet Underground opening for them. We're talking about the hilarious House of Frightenstein. We're talking about Lynn Johnson's long-running newspaper strip, For Better or For Worse. There was a regular daily newspaper strip in all the newspapers. And the one member, Michael Boncure of La Troupe Grotesque, she based a character on him in that newspaper strip because they were high school friends. She based this character who was the first gay newspaper strip character and ever, not just in Canada, but ever. And so we're dealing with all these elements, and that's just one chapter in the book, and that's a comedy duo. But if honestly, it's like if glam rock was glam comedy, it would be La Troupe Grotesque. So so there's also a lot of acts like No Fun started in 1974 in Surrey, and they were doing home recording and endless home recording and getting it out there. And their own distribution means was, the guy, Gary Pig Gold, puts out the Simply Saucer single, reads a review of them, says, if you distribute this in the West, I'll distribute the No Fun single in Eastern Canada. And this is a band that didn't fit anywhere. They came out before punk. They were really glammy. They were doing anything. They had a sense of humor. And, they existed for decades. And their history is long and interesting. We're talking about the movie Pink Flamingos, which was banned in Nova Scotia till 1997, edited in various provinces. You couldn't even see it unedited in the movie theater. But that was one of their influences, going to see that at a midnight movie in Vancouver. So, they were doing all these things, and they get written out of the history books. Why do they get written out of the history books? And he says, well, because we didn't fit the narrative. We didn't fit the narrative. So, yeah, they have a lot of the key elements of glam. You might even call them glam folk. I sure would. The one fella did a lot of glam projects that was in the band besides No Fun. The late Paul Leahy, who's, did so much glam right till the end, from the 70s right till the end with his act Paulie, with the, which had, opens with, the album opens with the song It's a Glam Glitter World. So, documenting this, but also there is a mandate, again, with a lot of my work, there's a kind of an underlying mandate, and it's pretty outspoken. And when I, discuss, industry and all that stuff, well, and my frustration with it, well, this book, I try to see as a corrective in two ways. It may be a history book, but it is trying to encourage multidisciplinary activity, which to me should not be, should not be something that should not be a barrier. Being multidisciplinary should not be a barrier. Why not? Why not mix certain disciplines? Look at glam. It's got all these elements in it, and it's some of the, to me, it's, if I had to, choose a genre, which I don't want to choose, I would choose glam. And also it strikes back at cultural conservatism, especially in Canada, but it can be for anyone outside of Canada. There are more people interested in, there are so many people interested in this book outside of Canada who, when they hear the word Canadian, aren't being repulsed. Why are we repulsed by actually by that? Why are we repulsed by our own culture? And why do we play it safe with our own culture? We shouldn't have to. And why are we also putting forth this false narrative that we are so pro nature when you look at the industry, you look at the pipeline, you look at all that stuff, and it goes to show that we, more than anyone else, Canada wants to destroy itself.
Well, what would you guess is the answer for that? I mean, why in 2020, why did the two words together, Canadian glam, sort of sound like an oxymoron? Like, what is holding Canadians back to realize their own sort of glam license and with all of this rich cross-disciplinary examples of this, why do you think maybe you've not had luck finding support within Canada for funding this project? What's the roadblock in the Canadian sensibility, do you think?
Maybe because it's not canon. Maybe it needs validation outside of Canada first, because Canada reacts and doesn't act. These acts are great. This is, I'm so critical of Canada, yet I'm also boostering this stuff that I really love that came from Canada. Okay, so a key glam tenet, and this is glam in general, was the book Against Nature by Huysman. Incredible book, written in the 1800s. It was said to be, in the Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, to be the nasty book. And of course, I'm giving the English title because I'm terrible. But it was the nasty unspoken evil book Against Nature. And it was all about artifice, and glam is so much about artifice. Creating new things and new identities for yourself. So Canada, again, positions itself, or tries to put forth a narrative that is all about nature. So Canadian nature, glam, against nature, even though it ain't necessarily so. So they rub up against each other uneasily. And so again, it's a culturally conservative country. A lot of these acts either had to know how to do a good right hook, or when they're playing these weird towns. Everyone talks about Canada being so open. Well, you go play a weird town and you could be chased out of town.
I think you're really hitting to the heart of, kind of an unspoken truth that I think is a truth that I've observed over time, is this resistance towards, in Canada, straight up resistance towards anything unusual, anything kind of out of the mold, anything that like messes with the Canadian narrative, and that spills over into like contemporary art, avant-garde music, and whatnot. But at the same time, like now, sort of the territory that I'm sure a lot of the people in your book were like brave enough to crack open is becoming like completely mainstream. But people forget that people had to sort of struggle to do that. And I don't see that happening in other countries so much, to be really honest. And I see a lot of studies from like arts funders, and they're talking about the extreme importance of art in people's lives in Canada. And sometimes I feel like, well, maybe not. And to try to convert people into appreciating it is what I think of as like cultural evangelicism or whatnot. And it's very difficult to do. But when you complete this book and it's released, what are you hoping that it can teach Canadians about ourselves or about this history? How can you think? How do you hope it resonates? I guess to change this kind of conservative attitude.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that it can break down. Like I said, again, a mandate to be more multidisciplinary and to be less culturally conservative, and to to break down that fear of anything Canadian. Yeah, a lot of I won't deny that a lot of bland stuff gets out there, but the quality of any work in any country is there's the good stuff, and then there's and maybe even, but I even think outside of Canada it would be nice if it just inspires people, it gets people excited to do stuff, or, it's a history, but I also want it to move forward. I want people to see how we can push and move forward. I read one person I interviewed who was in a punk band, John Cato from the Diodes. I interviewed him all about mostly painting little fantasy pictures on canvas shoes for the store Long John's. I was interviewing about glam culture, but he had put something in his feed lately. His feed, you can sound like like I'm on a farm. In his Facebook feed, saying that influencer culture is dying during this pandemic, and I don't know. I don't know if I have anything to substantiate that, But have you ever noticed when you go look at like on the search page of Instagram and you see all these other things, and it's this stuff that's got millions of views and millions of followers, but they're not saying anything. There's nothing there. Like but I never notice them because unless I'm in the search thing, because otherwise my feed is full of people I know or maybe don't even necessarily know, who have something more to offer. But the stuff that has nothing to offer are these influencers, and I'm sure more people know about this than I do. But me, I'm like, what? How? But it's empty. How can the people, millions, and it's empty? I can't figure it out. There's nothing there. It's completely, like, literally empty. Uh, it's like, literally there's nothing. Like, and it's millions of people are watching it. There's nothing. And I hear it's dying. When I saw he said that it's dying out, I'm going, oh God, I hope so.
I sympathize with that idea, whereas, I mean, I see a lot of contemporary art that's just completely empty as well, merely about aesthetics or, small ways of thinking about micro transgressions into the next phase of what is possible. And it makes a lot of people comfortable to talk about things like that when they don't actually have to sink their teeth into real world issues, which is murky and dangerous and can be contentious or confusing to consider them. But so I'm really wishing you the best of luck with this project. I think it's a really important thing to shed light on this alternative sort of flamboyant queer lineage of what has happened in this country at a time when that was like almost straight up dangerous, I suppose, for a lot of those people to do those things. So it's
Yeah,
good.
I mean, there's one club in Vancouver, and people forget all this. There's a club in Vancouver called Faces, and people say, even in my own research, there's a bias where people go, oh, there was no glam scene in Canada, there was no glam hangout, and it's like, well, you weren't looking in the right place. It was a gay bar, okay? And it was in Vancouver, and it was in the early 70s, and there was a trail of glitter on the sidewalk leading you to get in, and you could listen to the most cutting edge, not only glam but also R&B. You could listen to all this stuff and dance your ass off. And meanwhile, all these wild characters that I myself am just learning about, right? Randy Rhinestone, people like that would hang out outside, and these people would drive in. They'd hear about this place called Faces. They'd hear, like, they were hearing about this bar in California, through the circuit and everything. But then also people in like the suburbs and stuff would hear about it and go drive into the city in their trucks and yell and throw things at people, because it's a gay bar. Same as some of the places in Toronto too in the early 70s. People forget about that stuff. But yeah, and even just a regular rock band touring, throwing on a little bit of, throwing on their face a bit, throwing on a bit of makeup, you're playing some club, and it can get scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I hope, if there's any silver lining to this global pandemic and the chaos it's thrown your life in California into having to make I know for you, a very difficult decision to leave to come back to Canada. If there's any silver lining, I'm hoping it might be giving you a bit more time to work on this book.
Yeah, I mean, I got it lucky, man. I mean, I'm pretty grateful for what I got. I got it pretty lucky. You heard me complaining about a bunch of stuff, but but that's on a real micro level. On a macro level, I'm pretty damn lucky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, any final kind of thoughts about? I don't know. I just like to ask our guests, like, what are they thinking about? What are they planning to do in the next few weeks or months? Are any of their thoughts changing about what they do or about the world, or do you have any like hopes or anything that you think we can learn from this? That's a lot of questions, but sort of like what's on your mind, and what are you gonna do?
Gosh, I wish I could post this link to this article I read that was much more even-handed about the pluses and the minuses of this situation in the grand scheme of things. And it was a very even-handed thing, because there's a lot of people, and I see a lot of people in the States right now especially who are, spreading a lot of misinformation and getting, well, they're getting worried because, they don't have a CERB check coming their way, or they're cooped up and they're going, they don't know what's going to happen. And so, there's a lot of misinformation being spread. So we have that. But on the other hand, we also have people, facing their own feelings, facing themselves, maybe trying to realize what's important and what's not important. And I'm hoping that we come out of that with that knowledge. And when I talk about the influencers dying off, the influencer culture, I should say, I'm not talking about literally dying. I'm talking about figuratively dying off. I hope that's true. I hope that's true. I hope that that these perspectives happen for everyone.
I hope that's true too, Robert. And I hope, if anything can happen, things can get a little bit more real and focused in on, I guess, the truly important things in life. And I'm glad that you're focusing in on what you're doing in your projects, and that you're safe, and keeping your spirits up as much as possible, and not going for it. So I just want to really say thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me today. We went a little longer today, but I feel like I cut about half of the things that I wanted to talk about, because there's so many. We could go for the rest of the day easily.
And I'm long-winded.
No, it's not that. It's just that you have a lot of great, interesting things to talk about. You've done a lot, I said that you're a hard cucumber to pickle before, but that makes for a very interesting person as well, when there's a lot of facets to what they've done and what they're involved in. So thanks so much, Robert, and take care.
Well, thank you, Scott. Thanks so much for having me today. I think it's a really neat thing that you're doing, so thank you. And it's always a pleasure to see you.
Absolutely, and I look forward to seeing you again when that's possible. So, all right, take care. We'll talk soon.
See ya. Soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, if you're just joining us, and we've had some great viewers and comments today from right here in Guelph and from around the world. Thanks so much for everyone who's been watching. Liz, Brian Shirk, Alejandro, who was our guest yesterday, Candid Cage, Marianne, and also Sensi Boy, who I believe is coming on our show sometime in the next few weeks to talk about a fascinating thing that I don't know if a lot of people know about, but the underground budget hip-hop video economy that's in this area in Guelph, Kitchener, Waterloo, Hamilton. Love to talk to Squeezy C about how that works for him. Hope everyone enjoyed the show. Thanks again. I believe that actually tomorrow, I didn't ever really want to do this, but I think I'm going to take the day off. I don't have a guest lined up, and I'm just kind of falling behind on regular Ed Video, Artist Front Center bureaucracy, as they all have some level of, and I just got to catch up with some things and revamp to get ready with more energy for Thursday's show, which features amazing artist Carolyn Riddell from right here in Guelph, with a lot of fascinating stories and images of her work to talk about. So I'm gonna pretend I'm Edie now. I'm gonna play out on her little keyboard sometime soon. We're really hoping to have a better keyboard for her to lay down some fat EDM beats, maybe with some samples from her guinea pigs weeking. Thanks very much. I hope everyone's doing well and staying safe at home, and we will talk soon. Thursday at 2 p.m. with Carolyn